Every great leader in history made one critical discovery that changed everything. They realized that leadership is not a position you're given, but a power you develop within yourself. Right now, as you sit here, you possess the same raw materials that created every leader who ever lived. The only difference between you and them is what they chose to do with those materials. What if I told you that everything you've been taught about leadership is backwards? What if the real secret isn't learning how to influence others, but learning how to master yourself? Raise your hand if you've ever tried to change someone else's behavior. Keep it up. Now look around. Most of you have your hands raised. And here's what I want you to understand. Every minute you spend trying to change others is a minute stolen from the only person you actually have the power to change. The greatest leaders who ever walked this earth understood one fundamental truth. You cannot give what you do not possess. You cannot lead others to a place you have never been. You cannot inspire confidence in others when you lack confidence in yourself, and you certainly cannot create order in your organization when chaos reigns in your own mind. But here's what most people miss entirely. They think leadership is about learning techniques, memorizing strategies, or copying what successful people do. They study leadership like it's a subject in school, collecting information and hoping it will somehow transform them into leaders. This is exactly backwards. Leadership is not something you learn, it's something you become. Let me share something that will change how you think about your entire life. 3 years ago, a woman named Sarah managed a small team at a mid-sized company. She did her job, followed procedures, and complained constantly about her boss, her co-workers, and company policies. Sound familiar? Sarah spent her days explaining why things couldn't be done, why changes wouldn't work, and why she wasn't responsible for the problems around her. One Tuesday morning, Sarah's boss called her into his office and delivered news that should have devastated her. The company was restructuring, her department was being eliminated, and she had 30 days to find a new position within the company, or she would be let go. But instead of falling apart, something extraordinary happened. For the first time in years, Sarah stopped making excuses and started making decisions. She didn't waste time blaming the economy, the company, or her boss. Instead, she asked herself one simple question. If I were running this company, what would I do to solve the problems I've been complaining about? Within 24 hours, Sarah had written a detailed proposal outlining solutions for 3 major operational inefficiencies she had observed. She didn't ask for permission. She didn't wait for someone else to take action. She simply took responsibility for creating value. 30 days later, not only did Sarah have a new position, but she had been promoted to head of operations improvement. Within 18 months, she was leading a team of 40 people and had saved the company over $2 million through her initiatives. What changed? Not her education, not her experience, not her circumstances. Sarah changed her relationship with responsibility. This is the first and most critical foundation of all leadership. The moment you stop making excuses, you start making progress. But let me ask you something, and I want you to answer this honestly, either out loud or in your head. What excuse are you making right now that's keeping you small? What story are you telling yourself about why you can't step into greater leadership? Is it that you don't have enough experience? That's an excuse. Is it that you don't have the right education? That's an excuse. Is it that your boss doesn't appreciate you, or your company doesn't value leadership, or the economy is uncertain? Those are all excuses, and every single one of them is stealing your power. Here's what I need you to understand about excuses. They are not neutral. Every excuse you make doesn't just explain why you haven't succeeded. It programs your mind to continue failing. When you say, "I can't lead because I don't have enough experience," you're not just explaining your current situation. You're creating your future reality. You're training your brain to look for reasons why leadership isn't possible, instead of looking for ways to make it possible. True leaders have learned to flip this equation completely. When they encounter obstacles, they don't see reasons why something can't be done. They see opportunities to demonstrate their value. When others see problems, leaders see chances to create solutions. When others see limitations, leaders see potential for growth. But this shift doesn't happen automatically. It requires a fundamental change in how you view yourself and your relationship to the world around you. Most people live their lives as victims of circumstances. They wait for perfect conditions, ideal timing, and favorable situations before they take action. Leaders understand that there are no perfect conditions. There are only conditions, and your response to those conditions determines everything. Think about this. Every excuse you eliminate doubles your leadership capacity. If you currently make 5 excuses regularly, and you eliminate just one, you've increased your power by 20%. Eliminate 2 excuses, and you've increased your capacity by 40%. This isn't theory, this is mathematical reality, but excuses are just the surface level. The real foundation of leadership runs much deeper, and it's built on something most people never develop: internal strength. Leadership flows from internal strength, not external authority. You've seen this proven again and again, haven't you? The manager with the big title who can't get anyone to follow their vision. The person with no official position who somehow gets everyone to rally around their ideas. What creates this difference? It's the difference between trying to lead from the outside in versus leading from the inside out. External leadership depends on position, authority, and the cooperation of others. Internal leadership depends only on you. It's like the difference between a house built on sand and a house built on rock. When the storms come, and they always come, which house survives? Your character is the rock upon which all real leadership is built. But character isn't something you're born with or without. Character is something you build, day by day, choice by choice, moment by moment. Every time you do what you said you would do, your character grows stronger. Every time you keep a commitment to yourself, your leadership capacity expands. Every time you choose the right action over the easy action, you become more capable of leading others. Here's why this matters more than any leadership technique you could ever learn. People don't follow your words, they follow your energy. They don't trust your promises, they trust your consistency. They don't believe your vision, they believe your character. And character cannot be faked, borrowed, or taught in a seminar. Character can only be built through deliberate daily practice. What does this look like in practical terms? It means that if you can't lead yourself to exercise regularly, you'll struggle to lead others to achieve difficult goals. If you can't lead yourself to read and grow daily, you'll struggle to lead others to continuous improvement. If you can't lead yourself to maintain a positive attitude during challenges, you'll struggle to lead others through adversity. This is not about perfection, this is about direction. The question isn't whether you'll make mistakes, you will. The question is whether you'll learn from them. The question isn't whether you'll face setbacks, you will. The question is whether you'll use them to build strength or make excuses. Every morning, you wake up with the same choice that every leader in history has faced. Will you strengthen your character today, or will you weaken it? Will you keep your commitments to yourself, or will you break them? Will you take responsibility for your results, or will you blame your circumstances? These seem like small decisions, but they compound into enormous results. A person who chooses to strengthen their character every day for 1 year becomes a completely different person than someone who weakens their character daily for the same period. The difference isn't just in their results, it's in their entire way of being in the world. But character alone isn't enough. Character must be paired with competence, and competence comes through consistent growth. Great leaders understand something that ordinary people miss entirely. Leadership capacity is not fixed. It's not something you either have or don't have. Leadership capacity grows through deliberate daily development. Think of leadership development like farming. A farmer doesn't plant seeds and expect an immediate harvest. They plant seeds, water them daily, protect them from weeds, and trust the natural process of growth. They understand that consistent daily care produces extraordinary long-term results. Most people approach leadership development like they're shopping for lottery tickets. They attend a seminar here, read a book there, and hope for some sudden transformation that will make them leaders overnight. This approach fails because it violates the fundamental law of growth. All meaningful development happens gradually through consistent daily practice. What would happen if you committed to growing your leadership capacity by just 1% every day? In 1 year, you would be 37 times more capable than you are today. That's not motivation speak, that's mathematics. 1% daily improvement, compounded over 365 days, creates extraordinary transformation. But here's what 1% daily growth actually looks like. Reading 15 minutes every day, instead of watching television. Spending 10 minutes each morning planning your day, instead of checking your phone. Taking 5 minutes each evening to reflect on your performance, instead of mindlessly scrolling through entertainment. These actions seem insignificant in the moment, but they follow the law of compound growth. Just as compound interest creates financial wealth, compound development creates leadership capacity. The problem is that most people never start because the daily actions seem too small to matter. This is the same thinking that keeps people financially broke. They don't save money because a few dollars won't make a difference. Meanwhile, the person who saves consistently for years becomes wealthy through the power of compound interest. Leadership development follows the exact same principle. The leader who reads for 15 minutes daily will read over 90 hours per year. That's equivalent to more than 2 full-time work weeks dedicated to growth. The person who reflects for 5 minutes daily will spend over 30 hours per year improving their performance. These small daily investments compound into massive competitive advantages, but consistency is where most people fail. They start strong,
maintain their efforts for a few days or weeks, then gradually return to their old patterns. Why does this happen? Because they're fighting against their current identity, instead of working to create a new one. Your current results are a perfect reflection of your current identity. If you see yourself as someone who isn't a natural leader, you'll unconsciously sabotage any efforts to develop leadership skills. If you see yourself as someone who isn't good at public speaking, you'll avoid opportunities to practice and improve. Your identity creates your reality. The key to sustained growth is shifting your identity before trying to change your behavior. Instead of saying, "I'm trying to become a better leader," start saying, "I am a leader who is constantly improving." Instead of saying, "I'm working on my communication skills," start saying, "I am a communicator who practices daily." This isn't positive thinking or self-deception. This is identity transformation, and it's the foundation of all lasting change. When your identity shifts, your behavior automatically aligns with that new identity. When you truly see yourself as a leader, you naturally do the things that leaders do. The combination of taking responsibility, building character, and committing to consistent growth creates something powerful: leadership presence. People sense immediately whether you're someone who has done the internal work of becoming a leader, or someone who is just playing a role.
Leadership presence cannot be taught in a workshop or learned from a book. It can only be developed through the daily practice of leading yourself excellently. When you master yourself, your thoughts, your emotions, your actions, your habits, others naturally want to follow your example. This is why the most powerful leadership training happens in private, not in public. It happens in your morning routine, in your evening reflection, in the small choices you make when no one is watching. Every private victory makes you more capable of creating public victories. As we move forward, you'll see that these internal foundations, responsibility, character, and consistent growth, create something even more powerful. They give you the ability to recognize and work with the natural patterns that govern all leadership success. Just as a farmer must understand the seasons to produce a harvest, a leader must understand the predictable patterns that create influence and impact. Just as gravity works whether you understand it or not, there are invisible forces that determine your success as a leader. Most people fight against these forces because they don't recognize them. Smart leaders learn to work with them, but the truly great leaders, they master these forces completely and use them to create results that seem impossible to everyone else. What if I told you that your leadership success is more predictable than you think? What if there are specific patterns that, once you understand them, make influence and impact almost inevitable? Raise your hand if you've ever wondered why some people seem to naturally attract followers while others struggle to get anyone to listen. Keep those hands up. Now I want you to understand something that will change how you approach leadership forever. The people you're thinking about, the ones who seem to effortlessly attract others, they're not lucky. They've simply learned to align themselves with the natural laws that govern human behavior and leadership effectiveness. These laws work the same way for everyone, in every situation, in every culture, across all time periods. The only question is whether you'll learn to use them or continue to work against them. The first law is the law of value. Your influence expands in direct proportion to the value you provide to others. Not the value you think you provide, not the value you intend to provide, but the actual value that others receive from their interaction with you. This sounds simple, but most people completely misunderstand how it works. They think providing value means giving people what they want. Wrong. True leaders provide what people need, even when they don't know they need it. They solve problems before people realize problems exist. They create opportunities that others cannot see. They offer perspectives that shift how people think about their challenges. But here's the critical part that most people miss. The value must come first. You cannot demand loyalty before you've earned it. You cannot expect trust before you've demonstrated reliability. You cannot require respect before you've shown competence. The natural order is always value first, then influence. Reverse this order, and you'll struggle with leadership for your entire life. How many of you have worked for someone who demanded respect without earning it? How did that make you feel? Exactly. That person was violating the law of value, and your natural response was to resist their leadership. Now think about someone you followed gladly. What did they do first? They proved their value to you. They solved a problem for you. They made your life better in some concrete way. The second law is the law of reciprocity. When you genuinely serve others, they naturally want to serve you in return. But this law has a crucial condition. Your service must be genuine. People can sense immediately whether you're helping them because you care about them or because you want something from them. The energy is completely different, and so is the response you receive. Genuine service comes from abundance, not scarcity. When you serve from abundance, you help others because you have value to give, and it feels good to give it. When you serve from scarcity, you help others because you're hoping to get something back. People feel this difference instantly, and they respond accordingly. True leaders serve first and ask for nothing in return. They help others succeed without keeping score. They share credit generously and take responsibility willingly. This approach seems backwards to people who think in terms of getting ahead, but it's actually the fastest path to genuine influence. The third law is the law of timing. Right action at the right time creates exponential results. Wrong action at the right time creates limited results. Right action at the wrong time often creates no results at all. This is why some leaders fail spectacularly, despite having good intentions and solid strategies. Timing in leadership isn't about waiting for perfect conditions. Perfect conditions never exist. Timing is about recognizing when people are ready to receive what you have to offer. It's about understanding when the organization is ready for change. It's about knowing when to push and when to wait, when to speak and when to listen. Who here has ever had a great idea that nobody wanted to hear? Raise your hands. Now who has had the experience of sharing the same idea later and having everyone think it was brilliant? Most of the same hands are up. That's the law of timing in action. The idea didn't change, but the timing did, and timing made all the difference. Master leaders develop an almost supernatural sense of timing. They know when their team is ready for a new challenge. They sense when the market is ready for innovation. They feel when an individual is ready for promotion or when they need support. This isn't magic. It's the result of paying careful attention to patterns and cycles. This brings us to something even more powerful, the reality that everything in leadership moves in predictable cycles. Just as farmers know that planting season is followed by growing season, harvest season, and rest season, great leaders understand that challenges and opportunities follow natural patterns. Every leader will face cycles of growth and cycles of difficulty, periods when everything seems to work and periods when nothing seems to work, times when people are receptive to new ideas and times when they resist change, phases when resources are abundant and phases when resources are scarce. Average leaders get surprised by these cycles. They celebrate too much during good times and panic too much during difficult times. They make the mistake of thinking that current conditions will last forever. When things are going well, they become overconfident. When things get tough, they become discouraged. Great leaders expect these cycles and prepare for them. During good times, they prepare for challenges. During difficult times, they prepare for opportunities. They understand that every cycle contains the seeds of the next cycle, and they position themselves accordingly. Think about the most successful business leaders you know. Did their success come from avoiding difficulties or from navigating difficulties better than their competitors? The answer is always the same. They succeeded because they understood how to respond to challenges in ways that created long-term advantages. This is why some leaders emerge stronger from every crisis, while others are destroyed by the same circumstances. The difference isn't in what happens to them, it's in how they respond to what happens to them. The external circumstances are often identical. The internal responses are completely different. When a challenge appears, weak leaders ask, "Why is this happening to me?" Strong leaders ask, "How can I use this to become better?" Weak leaders look for someone to blame. Strong leaders look for lessons to learn. Weak leaders see obstacles. Strong leaders see opportunities to demonstrate their value. But the most important cycle to master is the cycle of your own leadership development. Leadership capacity doesn't grow in a straight line. It grows in spirals. You master one level, face new challenges that stretch you, integrate those lessons, and rise to the next level. Understanding this pattern prevents you from becoming discouraged when growth feels difficult. Most people quit growing as leaders because they don't understand this cycle. They expect growth to feel comfortable and easy. When it feels challenging and uncertain, they assume they're not meant to be leaders. This is exactly backwards. The discomfort of growth is proof that you're developing new capacity. Every great leader has faced moments when they felt completely overwhelmed by their responsibilities, moments when they questioned whether they were capable of meeting the expectations placed on them. These moments aren't signs of weakness, they're signs of growth. They indicate that you're operating at the edge of your current capacity and developing new capabilities. The key is to normalize this discomfort instead of running from it. Expect that real leadership development will challenge you. Plan for periods when you feel uncertain and unprepared. Use these experiences as fuel for growth, rather than evidence that you're inadequate. But here's what stops most people from mastering these patterns and cycles. They're fighting internal battles that have nothing to do with external circumstances. They're sabotaging their own leadership effectiveness through limiting beliefs, self-defeating behaviors, and mental patterns that guarantee failure. How many of you have ever talked yourself out of a leadership opportunity before anyone else had a chance to say no?
Be honest. Most people eliminate themselves from leadership roles through their own thinking, long before external factors become relevant. The most common self-sabotaging pattern is waiting for permission instead of taking initiative. Leaders don't wait to be anointed. They don't wait for someone to invite them to lead. They see what needs to be done and they do it. They see problems that need solving and they solve them. They see opportunities that need someone to champion them, and they become that champion. But most people have been conditioned to wait for authority figures to tell them what to do. They wait for their boss to recognize their potential. They wait for the perfect opportunity to present itself. They wait for conditions to be ideal before they take action. This waiting is a form of self-sabotage that prevents leadership from ever developing. Another destructive pattern is seeking perfect conditions instead of working with current reality. Perfect conditions don't exist. Perfect teams don't exist. Perfect timing doesn't exist. Perfect resources don't exist. Leaders work with what they have, not with what they wish they had. When you make perfect conditions a requirement for leadership, you're guaranteeing that you'll never lead. You're giving yourself an excuse to avoid the risks and challenges that all leadership requires. You're protecting yourself from failure, but you're also preventing yourself from success. The third pattern that destroys leadership potential is focusing on what's wrong instead of creating what's right. Some people become professional problem identifiers. They can tell you everything that's wrong with their organization, their industry, their economy, their government, but they never create solutions. They never take responsibility for making things better. Leaders flip this pattern completely. They spend their energy creating solutions rather than cataloging problems. They focus on what they can control rather than what they cannot control. They build what they want to see rather than complaining about what currently exists. But the most destructive pattern of all is leading from fear instead of leading from strength. Fear-based leadership shows up in countless ways: avoiding difficult conversations, making popular decisions instead of right decisions, seeking approval instead of providing direction, protecting yourself instead of serving others. When you lead from fear, people sense it immediately. Your uncertainty creates uncertainty in others. Your hesitation creates hesitation in your team. Your need for approval makes others question whether you deserve their confidence.
Strength-based leadership has the opposite effect. When you operate from a place of inner confidence and clear purpose, others naturally feel secure following your direction. Your certainty creates certainty in others. Your clarity creates clarity in your team. Your focus creates focus in your organization. The difference between fear-based and strength-based leadership isn't about feeling afraid or confident. Both types of leaders experience fear and uncertainty. The difference is in how they respond to those feelings. Fear-based leaders let their emotions control their actions. Strength-based leaders control their actions despite their emotions. This is why character development is so crucial. Character gives you the strength to do what's right even when you don't feel like it. Character gives you the power to act with confidence even when you feel uncertain. Character allows you to lead from strength even when circumstances would justify fear. Every limitation in your leadership can be traced back to one of these internal barriers. If you can't influence others, it's because you haven't learned to provide genuine value. If you can't build trust, it's because you haven't demonstrated consistent reliability. If you can't inspire confidence, it's because you haven't developed inner confidence. But here's the encouraging truth. Every one of these barriers can be eliminated through deliberate practice. You can learn to provide value by studying what others actually need and developing the capabilities to meet those needs. You can build reliability by making and keeping small commitments until larger commitments become automatic. You can develop inner confidence by repeatedly proving to yourself that you can do difficult things. The question isn't whether you have what it takes to overcome these barriers. The question is whether you'll commit to the daily practices that eliminate them. Because that's where we're going next, to the specific daily disciplines that transform ordinary people into extraordinary leaders. How to be a great leader, Part 3, Daily Disciplines for Leadership Excellence. The difference between knowing what to do and actually doing it consistently is the difference between dreaming about leadership and living it. You now understand the internal foundations and natural patterns that create leadership success. But understanding without application changes nothing. The gap between knowledge and results is bridged by one thing only: daily disciplined action. Who here has ever read a book about leadership and felt inspired for a few days, then gradually returned to your old patterns? Raise your hands. Don't be embarrassed. We've all been there. The reason this happens isn't because the information was wrong or because you lack willpower. It happens because you tried to change your life without changing your daily routine. This is impossible. Your life is the sum total of your daily habits. And if you want a different life, you must create different habits. Great leaders are not great because of what they do occasionally. They are great because of what they do consistently. The extraordinary results that others admire are built through ordinary daily practices that most people aren't willing to maintain. While others are looking for shortcuts and secret strategies, true leaders are mastering the fundamentals through repetition. There are 5 daily disciplines that, when practiced consistently, will transform your leadership capacity faster than any seminar, book, or training program ever could. These aren't complicated strategies that require special skills or perfect conditions. These are simple practices that anyone can implement starting today. But simple doesn't mean easy, and that's exactly why they work so powerfully. The first discipline is morning clarity. Every great leader starts their day by defining their leadership priorities before the world starts making demands on their attention. This isn't about making a to-do list of tasks. This is about identifying the most important leadership actions you can take today to move your goals forward and serve others better. Most people wake up and immediately start reacting to other people's priorities. They check messages, respond to requests, and spend their day putting out fires instead of building their leadership capacity. By the time they think about leadership development, they're already exhausted from managing everyone else's agenda. Leaders reverse this pattern completely. They invest the first portion of their day in activities that strengthen their ability to lead. They plan their day according to their values and priorities, not according to whoever demands their attention first. They start from a position of clarity and purpose instead of starting from a position of reaction and urgency. This practice takes 15 minutes. 15 minutes to review your leadership goals, identify your top 3 priorities for the day, and visualize yourself leading excellently in the situations you'll face. 15 minutes that determines whether you'll spend your day building your leadership capacity or simply surviving until bedtime. How many of you currently have a morning routine that prioritizes your leadership development? If you don't have your hand raised, you've identified the first change you need to make. You cannot lead others effectively if you're not leading yourself effectively, and leading yourself effectively starts with how you begin each day. The second discipline is continuous learning. Great leaders are lifetime students. They understand that their current knowledge and skills will become obsolete if they're not constantly growing. They commit to learning something new about leadership, their industry, or human nature every single day. This doesn't require going back to school or attending expensive conferences. This requires dedicating 30 minutes daily to reading, listening to educational content, or studying the examples of leaders you admire. 30 minutes per day equals over 180 hours per year of leadership education. That's equivalent to more than 4 full weeks of intensive training. But most people spend more time each day watching entertainment than they spend on personal development. They know more about fictional characters than they know about the principles that govern success. They can quote movie lines but can't articulate their leadership philosophy. This is a choice that guarantees mediocrity. Leaders make the opposite choice. They treat their mind like a garden that requires daily cultivation. They feed their mind with ideas that help them grow instead of content that merely entertains them. They study success instead of just hoping for it. The key is making learning active, not passive. Don't just read about leadership. Apply what you learn immediately. Don't just listen to educational content. Take notes and identify specific actions you can implement. Don't just study other leaders. Analyze their strategies and adapt them to your situation. Who here has read a leadership book in the past 90 days? Keep your hands up. Now, who has implemented at least one specific idea from that book? Look around. Far fewer hands are raised. This illustrates exactly why most people never develop exceptional leadership capacity. They consume information but they don't convert it into action. The third discipline is value creation. Every day, without exception, great leaders find ways to add value to the people around them. They solve problems, create opportunities, offer insights, provide encouragement, or simply make someone's day better through their interaction. This isn't about grand gestures or dramatic actions. This is about consistently looking for small ways to serve others. It's about asking, how can I help, instead of what can I get? It's about approaching every interaction with the question, how can I make this person's life better? Value creation becomes automatic when you shift your focus from what you can receive to what you can give. When you start each day asking, who can I serve today, instead of what can I accomplish today? Your entire relationship with leadership changes. You stop seeing leadership as something you do to get ahead and start seeing it as something you do to lift others up. But here's what most people miss. The value you create must be genuine, and it must be consistent. Occasional acts of service don't build leadership influence. Consistent daily service builds unstoppable influence over time. People don't follow you because of what you did for them once. They follow you because of what you do for them regularly. The fourth discipline is evening reflection. Great leaders end each day by evaluating their leadership performance. They ask themselves what they did well, what they could have done better, and what they learned that will help them lead more effectively tomorrow. This practice takes only 10 minutes, but it accelerates your leadership development exponentially. Without reflection, you can have the same leadership experience over and over again, without getting better. With reflection, every experience becomes a lesson that increases your capability. Most people end their day by distracting themselves from their day. They watch television, scroll through entertainment, or engage in activities that help them forget about their performance. Leaders do the opposite. They examine their performance to extract the maximum learning from their experience. The questions you ask during reflection determine the value you receive from this practice. Don't just ask, what happened today? Ask, what did I do today that demonstrated leadership? Ask, where did I miss opportunities to provide value? Ask, how did I respond to challenges, and how could I respond better next time? This reflection creates a continuous improvement loop that compounds your leadership capacity. Each day's experience becomes fuel for the next day's better performance. Each mistake becomes a lesson that prevents future mistakes. Each success becomes a pattern you can repeat and build upon. The fifth discipline is physical vitality. Leadership requires energy, and energy comes from taking care of your physical health. You cannot lead others effectively if you're constantly tired, stressed, or operating below your physical capacity. This doesn't mean you need to become an athlete or spend hours in the gym. This means you need to move your body regularly, eat food that gives you energy instead of draining it, and get enough sleep to recover from the demands of leadership. Most people treat their body like it's separate from their leadership capacity. They think they can neglect their physical health and still perform at peak levels mentally and emotionally. This is impossible. Your physical state directly affects your mental clarity, emotional stability, and ability to inspire others. Leaders understand that maintaining physical vitality is not selfish, it's a leadership responsibility. When you're operating at full energy, you're able to serve others better. When you're tired and depleted, you become a burden instead of a resource. These 5 disciplines, morning clarity, continuous learning, value creation, evening reflection, and physical vitality, work together to create what I call the compound effect of leadership excellence. Each discipline supports and strengthens the others. Morning clarity makes continuous learning more focused. Continuous learning improves your ability to create value. Value creation gives you better material for evening reflection. Evening reflection helps you identify ways to improve your physical vitality. Physical vitality gives you more energy for morning clarity. When you practice all 5 disciplines consistently, they create momentum that becomes almost unstoppable. Each day builds upon the previous day. Each week is stronger than the week before. Each month represents significant growth in your leadership capacity. But here's what matters more than anything else. You must start before you feel ready. You will never feel completely prepared to begin these disciplines. You will never have perfect conditions for implementing them. You will never find the ideal time to commit to daily leadership development. The best leaders throughout history started before they felt ready. They began with imperfect knowledge and uncertain conditions. They committed to growth while they were still learning. They took action before they had complete confidence in their abilities. How many of you are waiting for something to change before you begin developing your leadership capacity? What are you waiting for? Better circumstances, more time, different responsibilities, additional resources. Every day you wait is a day of leadership development lost forever. The truth is that there will never be a perfect time to begin. There will always be obstacles, challenges, and excuses available if you want to use them. The question is whether you'll use those challenges as reasons to wait or as fuel to begin. Starting these disciplines doesn't require changing your entire life immediately. It requires changing how you begin and end each day. It requires investing 1 hour daily in activities that build your leadership capacity instead of activities that merely pass time. 1 hour per day, 15 minutes for morning clarity, 30 minutes for continuous learning, 5 minutes throughout the day for value creation, 10 minutes for evening reflection. Whatever time remains for physical vitality, 1 hour that will transform your leadership capacity and through your leadership, transform the lives of everyone you influence. But discipline alone isn't enough. These practices must be guided by something larger than personal achievement. They must be driven by a commitment to building a leadership legacy that extends far beyond your own success. Great leaders understand that their highest purpose is not to accumulate personal power, but to develop other leaders. Your greatest leadership achievements will not be what you accomplish directly, but what you enable others to accomplish through your influence and example. Every person you lead is watching how you handle responsibilities, respond to challenges, and treat other people. They're learning from your example, whether they realize it or not. Your daily disciplines don't just develop your capacity, they demonstrate to others what committed leadership looks like. When you consistently practice morning clarity, you show others the importance of intentional planning. When you commit to continuous learning, you model the mindset of growth.
When you focus on value creation, you teach others to serve before seeking. When you engage in evening reflection, you demonstrate the importance of continuous improvement. When you maintain physical vitality, you show others how to sustain long-term effectiveness. This modeling effect multiplies your influence exponentially. Direct leadership affects the people you lead personally. Indirect leadership affects everyone, those people lead and influence. Legacy leadership affects generations of leaders who learn from your example and pass those lessons forward. The question is not whether you have what it takes to be a great leader. You have the same raw materials that created every leader who ever lived. The question is whether you will choose to develop those materials through daily disciplined action. The question is not whether you deserve to lead others. Everyone deserves the opportunity to serve others through leadership. The question is whether you will prepare yourself to serve others excellently. The question is not whether perfect conditions will eventually appear. Perfect conditions never exist for anyone. The question is whether you will create excellent results with the conditions that exist right now. Leadership is not about the position you hold, but about the person you become. Start becoming that person today. Start with the morning clarity that defines your priorities. Start with the continuous learning that expands your capabilities. Start with the value creation that serves others. Start with the evening reflection that accelerates your growth. Start with the physical vitality that sustains your energy. Start now. Start small, but start. Your future self, your future team, and everyone whose life you will touch through your leadership is counting on the decision you make in this moment. The world needs leaders who are committed to excellence, service, and continuous growth. Be one of those leaders. Begin today.